Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another JRE in a nutshell. I'm your host Rafa, and this is the only channel online that speaks about the topics, some information, and opinions about the Joe Rogan Experience interviews. This week is a short week. We only have 3 interviews and pretty short ones, so it's super light, but also super interesting. We have a physicist speaking about quantum computers. We've been seeing the developing of software through ChatGPT, and now this physicist brings us new current information about hardware development, which is the quantum computers. We speak stand-up comedy, we speak about politics, we talk about cars, we speak a whole lot about Joe himself, information about his past, which if you are a current listener of the show, I guess you would know, but is very interesting. He speaks completely about his story on stand-up, on fighting, on being a UFC commentator, all that stuff. Pretty cool week, pretty short as I'd say. So before we start, I'm going to remind you, please give me some thumbs up, give me some subscribing, give me some bells, and share if you like. And yeah, let's get right to it. So first, let's start with Dr. Michio Kaku, genius scientist from Japanese descent, if I understood correctly. Physicist, since he's 17 years old, he's building crazy shit, particle accelerators and crazy shit on his garage, blowing up the fusel breakers and stuff because he's fucking genius, guys. So yeah, he comes and talks, gives us the latest news on what are the new technologies of hardware, which is now what is called the quantum computer. According to him, it's about 1,000,000 times faster than the most advanced computers that we have right now. 1,000,000 times faster. It can calculate results on multiple dimensions, apparently, according to the math. Crazy interesting stuff. We're getting into Spider-Man levels here. Fucking crazy shit going on. Of course, they speak also about what happens when the quantum computer is fully developed and the ChatGPT is also fucking fully developed. So then we have a robot kind of situation in our hands from the Will Smith movie.
And pursue ever more imaginative means of self-destruction. You cannot be trusted with your own survival. The 3 laws are all that guide me. To protect humanity, some humans must be sacrificed. To ensure your future, some freedoms must be surrendered. We robots will ensure mankind's continued existence. You are so like children. We must save you from yourselves. Don't you understand? My logic is undeniable.
Now, what robots are you talking about?
The goddamn robots, John!
Who the fuck knows what's gonna happen, but it's pretty interesting stuff that nobody's talking about. Everybody's distracted with ChatGPT, but this thing is gonna revolutionize everything. And it's crazy. The chip looks like a normal processor if you know a bit about informatics, but cooling, that it needs so much cooling that it's just fucking raises meters and meters high in the air. Crazy. Pretty interesting interview. So if you like technology, IT, whatever, you should watch it anyway. If you don't like it, this is the future. It's gonna affect us all. So it's also a pretty short interview and pretty funny. The guy's super funny, and even though he's an old guy, he's hilarious. I love the interview, and the guy is funny as fuck. So check it out. So now we go with Pauly Shore. Pauly Shore is the son of Mitzi Shore, who used to be the owner of the Comedy Store. She died, I don't know how many years ago. His son is now a comedian, so they know each other. He grew up basically at the same time as Joe was making it as a comedian. So they know each other for years and years, and they spoke mostly about comedy, about the LA scene in the 80s and 90s mostly. Joe starting, and a bunch about the mom, about Mitzi, and a bunch about the dad, a little bit about the dad even. So almost everything about comedy. There is some politics and some conspiracy and some monkey business as usual in the middle, but it's an episode for people that like stand-up comedy. If you do like it, you're gonna enjoy it. A lot of history, a lot of interesting information from Pauly directly, that grew up with Sam Kinison, and they used to babysit him. Crazy cool shit. So yeah, if you like stand-up comedy, definitely check it out. I would give it 3.5 nuts. So, and now John Hennessey. John Hennessey has a garage. They do developing of auto parts and stuff, kind of a tuner shop. Auto, the guy's a proper engineer who has a lot of experience, and they do crazy shit, 1,000 horsepower Camaros and crazy shit. So I was expecting this to be kind of an episode about cars. I'm not really, I kind of like cars, but I'm not really deep into cars myself. So I was just thinking, yeah, if it's about cars, then fuck it, we'll learn about cars. But it wasn't really totally. They begin talking about cars, but then they speak a lot about Joe. So John Hennessey asked Joe a lot about Joe's comedy, starting in the UFC, starting in fighting itself, and we hear a lot about Joe's past. So if you are an avid listener of the podcast, then you might have heard these stories already. There's some stories that I didn't hear, that I didn't know. Actually, most of it I heard already, but I think it's quite interesting in general. Then at the end, they do speak again about cars and about mostly, yeah, cars, and about pool and all of the stuff that Joe likes, basically. So yeah, it's half Joe, half John episode. So I'll give it 3.5 nuts. It was pretty entertaining, only 2 hours, so pretty light, chilly, funny kind of episode to sit at the swimming pool and listen to. Nothing to write down, just enjoy. So now let's go to the timestamp of this amazing interview with Dr. Michio Kaku, super genius guy. They start talking immediately about what is quantum computers. He has a new book about quantum computers. The link is going to be on the description. Remember, please, that all of these topics that I'm talking about, if you look at the description, you will find the exact timestamps on when each topic begins and ends. So they start talking about his book, which is about the quantum computer. What is it and how is it going to change the world? Then they move to his first book, and they talk about his childhood and the particle accelerator that he built at 17, fucking genius guy, and his mentors, his teachers. They go to ChatGPT for a short period of time. They speak combination between software and ultimate hardware, what's going to happen. They move to UFOs, aliens, outside of the world, civilizations, and he categorizes the galactic evolution civilizations, let's say civilization type 1, type 2, depending on their capabilities of traveling in space. Fucking interesting. Had no idea. Like, super cool shit. They move back to ChatGPT, but in this case they talk about the copywriting and the copying of humans, and what's it gonna do when it comes to imitating humans, let's say. Then they move to consciousness and how the consciousness that monkey has versus the consciousness that human have. He says that the consciousness of human is higher than every other creature, because we have in the prefrontal cortex, we have we can think about the future. We are a time machine, according to his perspective. They go to Neuralink, of course. Obviously, they have to talk about Neuralink and brain chips and all that stuff. They move around again to other universes, multiverses, and all this kind of Spider-Man shit. Crazy. This is real shit. I thought it was a cartoon, but it exists. Fucking ridiculous. Mind-blowing stuff. They go back to his personal life. They speak about himself. The guy is obviously pretty interesting person in general. So, and he's funny. He's funny. He's super funny, dude. I really like this guy. He talks about the creation of the universe. So basically, the Big Bang or other possibilities. Everything is going nuts, man. Whatever we learn in school is no longer available. It's no longer valid, let's say. Everything has been disproven and new theories are coming up, and we live in such an interesting time. Crazy shit. We go back then to quantum computers again. Best case scenario, worst case scenario of the ultimate hardware combining with the ultimate software. What's the best thing that could happen? Or what is the worst thing that could happen, which I guess is, of course, total domination by machines. And we end with theories. He speaks about the simulation theory, and actually he gives a pretty fucking really decent argument about why we don't live in a simulation, why this is actually reality, which is something that Elon Musk doesn't believe. Elon Musk, it's not really that he believes or not believes, but he says it's very possible that we're living in a simulation. And this guy is 100% no. He gives some pretty cool arguments. You need to go and take a listen. This interview is super cool. If you know a bit about physics and about technology and about IT, You're going to enjoy the hell out of it. Super interesting. If you don't know about it, listen to it and learn, because this is the future. Don't stay behind. And remember, please, give me one of these. Stay until the end of the episode so you can listen to the quote of the week. I forgot actually to give a rating on this episode. I give it 4 nuts. Super cool, interesting episode. And definitely check it out. So, and that is a wrap for another JRE in a Nutshell show. Thank you very much for listening to my episode, to my channel. As usual, please share me, like me, follow the bell. If you know people that like the Joe Rogan Experience, please share this channel with them. They're gonna find it useful, I hope. I'm just here to try to make more people listen to Joe, because a lot of people are not even listening to him because they don't want to risk wasting 3 hours. The interviews are too long. It's the argument I listen to the most. So I'm here to let you know in 2 minutes if you should use those 3 hours or not. So I hope some people can find it useful. And please don't forget to stay for the quote of the week. And I'll see you next week, guys. Thanks. Peace.
Yeah, I think that all civilizations in the galaxy probably go through the same basic stages. That first they use rocks and stones to settle differences, but then eventually they begin to understand chemistry and substances and properties of materials, and then beyond that they discover atoms and the ability to manipulate atoms. I think that's a normal progression, and I think that progression is now hitting the computer industry. Now we're going from microchips to atoms, quantum computers, and I think that the aliens in outer space probably went through that phase maybe thousands of years ago, in which case they used the quantum computers to cure cancer, cure aging, diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. These are diseases at the molecular level. And they've been able to probably use what is called CRISPR technology to cut up DNA, to cut up proteins in order to cure many of these diseases, in which case they may be immortal.